Hey peeps, it's Tripl-L, and now it's time to talk Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans episode 35. Calamity Awakens? I think that was the episode title. Man, I really like this episode. There's times when shit hits the fan, and then there's times when beams rip out of the ground and threaten your very existence. And this is one of those times. This episode, I think, did very well establishing what was going to happen at the end. The episode is just this really gigantic build up to this horrible travesty that's about to go down, and it set it up very well. It was a very good episode from the very beginning to the very end. Things happen in such a way that shit was just gonna go bad real quick. So let's just get into this episode. Really, the moment I really want to talk about is the last shot of the episode, but we're gonna start up, and we're gonna be reasonable about it. We're gonna go in order. So the first moment that I really want to talk about, it's the mafia thing at the very beginning, because this moment at the very beginning that opens up the episode, it's very important in that it frames the entirety of the episode after it. So while it's not very exciting, it's the moment that the whole episode pretty much hinges upon. Because had this factor not been in play, had this factor of mafia guys being kind of wary of the young upstarts not been in play, and we would not have gotten this, just the mess that happens at the end. So when it comes to the mafia thing at the very beginning, and I'm just gonna call the guy, I don't know, Leopard Print, because he has some leopard print on him. Oh man, I forgot. Maybe I do know his name. Might be Langley or something. But no, Leopard Print. So Leopard Print, he has enough people in Sassy that he's able to find out what Tekadon is doing, and he has enough connections in the outside world that he can just spread information around. And in him doing that, it alerts every enemy of Tekadon what's going on. And so their involvement is very frustrating, because their involvement is the kind of involvement that might get people killed. And it might get good people like Naze killed. So at this point, the thing is with Iron-Blooded Orphans, I'm fairly confident that the people who screw over Tekadon are going to get their comeuppance. Like, Mikazuki's just going to triple shot them. And so I'm not too worried that I'm not going to see this man suffer. I know he's going to suffer at some point. It's just how much of a death toll is he going to leave because of his actions. And I really, if Tekadon actually finds out about this guy's involvement in leaking the plans, I do think it'd be a very satisfying conflict, Tekadon versus him. And I would love to see him just freak out when he realizes Mikazuki's coming for him. But because he's just getting involved so much, and because the guy from Gallahorn has now recognized his name, I do wonder how much damage he's going to cause. And really, the worst case scenario is that Naze dies, because I don't want Naze to die, because he's like a legitimately nice character. I don't want him to die. But so that first moment really does frame the episode. It sets up this kind of plot for a while. Anyway, let's leave the mafia behind. Let's go to the next moment. Next moment I really liked was the Gundam Floros official kind of, well, not official reveal, but like just the update and seeing the paint job. So at this point, it is pretty much confirmed it's going to Shino. But I'm going to take this opportunity to talk a bit about Shino, because some things are happening in this episode and they are not good. They are not good at all. So first off, when they're talking about the Gundam, yeah, it's cool. It's cool that it's got his colors and it's going to motivate him. But the guy right there says at that point, he's always been reckless. I hope he doesn't get more reckless. It's like, no, don't say that. Don't say that. And then Shino in particular in this episode, he's establishing friendships with Zack. They had their little moment. They had their bro moment. They went out into the town, and now there's like a nice little dynamic between them, and it's very nice. It's nice to see characters getting along. But at the end of the episode, it's Zack and Shino. They were both sent out with Orga's group and Mikazuki to check out the mobile armor that they've found. Having that pair there together right now in the middle of a fight like that, it worries me, because Gundam does this thing where they get these characters to be buddy-buddy, and then after some trials and tribulations, one of the pair dies. And we just recently got that with Aston. So having Shino getting set up, and Shino's always been the one character that I've been terrified for. He might die. in this whole thing, and I really don't want it to happen. And you know, maybe it won't. Maybe Gundam's just messing with me, but establishing a relationship between Shino and Zack right now at this moment, it's very, very suspicious. I'm very concerned. I really hope no one dies in this whole little calamity that's about to awaken. Anyway, let's move on to the next moment. This one, I'm calling it the build up to calamity. It's really just when the machine, like the attachment piece or the accessory to the mobile armor kind of just activates, because it does look very alien. And just because the build up to that particular moment was very nicely done, you know, they had people coming in to tell them, no, don't do it. And we had the build up from McGillis right before it, that these things are exceedingly dangerous. They will wipe out human life, and they're not something that you should ever touch. And so getting that particular build up at that moment was just really good, because it's the halfway mark of the episode, and it just pretty much tells you, yeah, this is bad. Things are going to get bad. But there's actually something really interesting with that, the use of that particular accessory piece. And I'll talk about that as well at the last moment. So the next moment after that I really want to talk about is the moment that Eok touches down on Mars. Now, this one's important because I think this is more of it's a good way of using a stupid character in a reasonable light, right? Because Eok's coming down there with the idea that they're going to stop McGillis from getting his glory, whereas McGillis is going in with the more noble intent of, yeah, guys, we cannot let this thing come back to life. And so you have Eok, who is arguably a very foolish character. He's not stupid in the way of like book smarts, but he's a very foolish character, and just because of the way that he kind of views things and the way he kind of deals with things. And this episode kind of shows it in the way that these guys are chasing after McGillis, and they're using the logic of McGillis just wants to further his position, and McGillis keeps that kind of higher ground by saying, oh, that's how you guys see it. And then when he has to tell Eok to not come any closer, it does show that there is a level of stupidity between McGillis and him. There's a reason one of the parties is chasing the other. And so, you know, it would have been very frustrating had this been a stupider character, but because these characters from Gjallarhorn, they are pursuing some logic, and they are doing things with the best amount of their ability that they can, and the amount of knowledge that they have on their side, you know, it makes the situation where it's more like, it stops being a situation that came about through stupidity, and rather just a situation that came about through just it's more of a tragedy that this situation happened, because for this to happen, it needed the betrayal from people in Teiwaz, and it needed people in Gjallarhorn who were prideful enough and just totally against McGillis to go in there all just guns a-blazing. And now, because of that, we go into the first moment, which is the mobile armor freaking awakens. And man, this is a very big thing for me, because one, it's like, oh shit. The moment that thing fired a beam weapon, that's pretty much like taking a sword to a gunfight. Except that now, not only are you going to die, the rest of the town is going to be wiped away. Yeah, that makes sense. And so, you know, especially for Iron-Blooded Orphans, just the introduction of the beam weapon by itself, because Iron-Blooded Orphans has been created in such a way that through the methods of combat, it creates a more intimate affair, because people are getting crushed in more devastating ways, and it's a more immediate kind of thing by having people going up against each other using these giant maces or just giant slugs of metal being fired through space. It makes for a very different aesthetic, and it makes for a very different mode of combat. But when you bring in the beam weapon, you know, it goes against the whole idea of what they were going for with the combat in Iron-Blooded Orphans. There's a lot of interviews with the creators of the series as well, where they specifically say how they feel about the combat in Iron-Blooded Orphans and how they just kind of wanted to make it more gritty, I think, from what I can recall. But with the introduction of that beam weapon, it does kind of show that this is a weapon from a different era, just because on the metaphorical levels and the thematic levels of the mode of combat, it does alienate from the rest of the series. So it's okay that it has a beam weapon. It's just, it's going to be, it does further show how different of a threat this is, because this is a threat from past era, and it's an era where, you know, in terms of the combat, it's going to be different, and it does symbolically, metaphorically, whatever, show the difference, and that's what I'm trying to say. So with the introduction of the beam weapon, it's both very scary and both also marking how different of an enemy this is going to be. Now, I was mentioning something when I was talking about the little accessory piece. There was a bit of hope in this episode when they got the update from the people at Sase, and they were saying that, yeah, we've got this under control, but we're pretty banged up. The fact that they had it under control with regular mobile suits, though, is a very, very good sign. It does give hope that, yeah, this mobile armor can probably be taken down. And so I'm very happy about that. I'm very hopeful for that. And now, in terms of the mobile armor itself, and leading off from that point, I would very much not want the final enemy of this season of Gundam to be a mobile armor whose only goal is to kill people, because that takes away from what Iron-Blooded Orphans does really well, and that's establishing these relationships with the villains, or just the dynamics that the villains have. And so I don't want to take away that human element from a final villain in Gundam, because if it's just a mindless killing machine that's the final boss, like 14 episodes from now or something, I'm gonna be slightly disappointed. If it's a man who's controlling a mindless killing machine, okay, it's slightly better. But you know, the first season of Gundam, we ended off with Ein, and he was pretty much a machine at that point. He had gone crazy, but the thing is, his human element, he still had this crazy loyalty to Crank, he still had his crazy loyalty to Galileo. And so, you know, at least that's redeemable, but I do not want to see another situation where we're going into a crazy man machine who's just killing everything because he went too crazy with power, or just because it has too much power. You know, that's not as interesting a situation. I'd much rather Vidar be the final villain and just give us a really, really interesting kind of equal fight with Mikazuki. Like, if you had Mikazuki who was fighting legitimately his equal and not just some giant souped up mech, and rather just a man who's also hooked up the same way that Mikazuki is, I'd much rather that over a mindless killing machine. And so when you take that into account, and you take into account how easily the accessories were dealt with in this episode, you know, this is the makings of probably the mid-season boss. Because right now, we are, I think, 10 episodes into this second season, and so this, what would usually be the season finale right before we switch openings, is probably going to be in 2 or 3 episodes from now. So I could very easily see this conflict right now taking up the next 2 episodes, and maybe potentially a third one where it's the fallout of this conflict. And hopefully we'll get the whole mobile armor situation dealt with, and we don't have to see it too much. Like the idea of just a giant machine that wants to kill everything, yeah, it's too simple. It's just really simple. And so with all that I've just said, I am concerned because the last time we had the mid-season finale for season 1, Fumitan died, and you know, the colonies went into rebellion. And now it's more of a who in Tekadon is going to get killed in the crossfire of this thing, because we know that from the preview, people are going to be going in to try and save them, and we just don't know how quickly it's going to be till the main Gundam fighters can get in there. And look, the fact that Mikazuki and Akihiro and Hush as well are out there, who's going to ride a powerful mobile suit? It's very few people can, and it's going to be interesting to see what actually happens. Now let's see, any other things I want to mention for this moment. Oh yeah, Mikazuki. Mikazuki was on point. He was sensing everything that was going on. He sensed when the Eok touched down, and he sensed when the mobile armor just went up. So what I'm thinking is, because Mikazuki in particular has the most amount of the procedures done on him for the nanobots and whatever, I think the nanobots are reacting to the mobile armor, especially because of the way they say that the mobile suits are the direct enemy to the mobile armor. So it'll be interesting to see Mikazuki's further involvement with this kind of stuff. Other things, oh yeah, Eok. The man's probably gonna have his pride shattered. He's gonna be put in his place. Like, even in the preview, you can see he's already destroyed. This man's going down. I'm gonna be with popcorn. I'm gonna be happy when I see this guy fail. Anyway, guys, this video's gone on for long enough. There's a lot of cool things happening in the episode. Let me know what you think. How hyped were you when that mobile armor woke up? And how scared are you for your characters? Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. And until next time, I hope you have a great day. And apologies if this video was hard to understand. I tripped on my words a lot this time.